Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrating to Australia or perhaps having a visa to travel to Australia in this pandemic era? Why don't you consider to subscribe to our channel and turn a little bell on the side, so once we have all the news and updates, we'll give you all the insight. Now obviously today we are here to provide you a little bit insight, gathering from information from different media sources in Australia in regards to visa and also immigration topics. Now, the reason that these article has been generated from different type of media, obviously, is due to budget 2021 and 2022, which was announced 2 days ago by the Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. So this media article actually given a little bit more depth of what we had provided a day ago. So I would like to share all this with all of you and my viewers and all my subscribers, so that you can actually predict and look into the future and how the visa system will actually be like in the upcoming July and the new financial year of Australia. So let's jump into the first one. Now the first news, it's actually coming from Sydney Morning Herald, and you can see the date is actually yesterday. No, the day before. Okay. Anyway, this actually published, I think, it should be at the night time, because yeah, here we go. It's at night time. So I only got it to review it yesterday and got it all done, and that's the reason why I'm here to share with all of you. So the topic is saying border closure cost country 174,000 new migrants. That's pretty obvious. So what does it say? Now, this media does not triggers any changes in migration or visa policies, just bear in mind, but it does provide a public opinion of the community within Australia. So it will somehow have an effect, because in a democracy, democrat society like Australia, obviously elections coming up, so this will certainly affect the possible and the future policy of immigration for Australia. So let's read what it says. Australia will welcome 174,000 fewer, meaning no, new migrants than expected just 6 months ago, and the nation's border are likely to remain shut until the second half of next year. That's 2022, as I have published on the news yesterday. The federal budget revealed that government expected the net 96,600 Australians to leave the country this financial year, following the exodus of another 77,400 in 2021 and 2022. What does it say? Meaning that the government knows that they are about almost 100,000 Australians leaving the country. Interesting. I never expected that. Now I'm probably one of that, because I did not leave, but the problem is I cannot return. Now a lot of people ask me, why don't you return back to Australia? I say I can, but what about the cost of air tickets, like 300 or 400% more than what we used to cost, and also plus the you need to pay for the quarantines 14 days. Now that cost me a lot, because then there will be issues when I serving clients, where especially when sometimes the EOI opens and closes, I cannot take on to the matter timely. Anyhow, this is just very interesting, because we actually know that about 100,000 Australians left Australia. Now that actually coincides to what I have talked about in regards to a very large, not me. I mean, some media does say that the government has turned Australia to become a largest prison in the world. Now, obviously, that's another. I think it's a joke because the purpose of that is the government of Australia is trying to protect the society there, but there are people. Due to businesses and the work and things, they're required to be out of Australia. Otherwise, they can't do anything back in Australia. Anyhow, that's for like frequent business travelers. I used to travel a lot, but now cannot travel. So I need to stay somewhere that I can be safe and continue to do work. Now, this is substantially higher than the net 93,200 who the government intends to leave over the same 2-year October-February budget. So it actually, there were more people left the country of Australia than expected. This is due to government pushing back by the year expectation permanent migrants and international students begin to gradually returning from mid-2022 with a small pilot program student expected to commence later this year. In the 2020 budget, the government was hopeful of, that's last year, reopening the border in mid of this year, but obviously that would not happen, so another year of delay. The rate of international arrival will continue be constrained by the state and territory quarantine caps over 2021 and the first half of 2022, with the exception passenger safe travel zone. That's for instance New Zealand. Inbound, outbound international travel is expected to remain low throughout to mid 2022, after which will gradually recovery international tourism. Now that's another big part of the industry that Australia used to had, and now it's all shut. And that severely affected the hospitality industry. Looking at all the fine dining restaurants and those tourist sites, Cairns, Gold Coast, things like places like that. Despite the government expecting 174,000 residents to leave the country over this financial year and next, the budget has remained assumption of 160,000 migrants will enter Australia. The government says it will prioritize a process visa 1,000 people trapped outside country whose partner are leaving in Australia. That's another thing. There are so many offshore partner visas where the family has simply been separated apart. Now, I've been engaged in assist some of my clients and friends to actually get the family united, to invite the partner or family to travel back to Australia, and those travel exemptions were refused. And that actually, pushes the Australian who are in Australia to actually travel out of Australia. That's another reason for that. So again, I think this is a very good article. The slowdown of migration is having the border impact on the nation's expected population. The expected number of Australians living in the nation in 2023 has been cut by 41,000, roughly the size of a New South Wales country city, double. Treasury expecting the October budget, those figures have been already heavily downgraded, again due to the issue. Most of the downgraded population is in New South Wales, and Treasury expected the state lot to lose a net 20,000 people or more every year. Wow, that's a lot. Until 2023 and 24, instead of losing resident, Victoria is forecasting attract people from other parts of countries over the next 4 years. Now that's gonna be hard. That's like pulling people. What I've seen the stats is people are leaving Victoria and New South Wales and head to Queensland. So if you check out the house boomings in Queensland, it's predominantly dominated by all these southern part of Australians who are moving into a cheaper cost state and still got that leisure and the luxury that they wanted to have, but they have of their costs in accommodation living. Anyway, that's for the first news article. I think that's very interesting as we see that there are almost 100,000 Australian citizens left Australia for the past 12 months. Now the next one is from the SBS Hindi. It's budget 2021. Indian community, obviously Indian community is furious at the moment because obviously due to the condition and situation over in India, some Australian politicians had made the wrong statement which they should have done it better. But again, politicians are still politicians. They're there to win votes. So sometimes when you see the migrants who had not the right to vote, and they're in the minority group, then you see the reaction from the politician because they want to win their votes, and that's the problem. Okay, international student disappointed over immigration announcement. That's pretty obvious. We are also disappointed about what they have done. They should have done it better. Australian Indian community, include international student, migration agent, industry experts, say that they feel let down by the Australian government migration-related announcement in the budget. So what happened? So this was yesterday's news, 1 day ago. Far away from New Delhi, Amitesh, how do I pronounce this? Moria closely follow Australian federal government's social media. So highlight here is international student is strained overseas. So this is very concerned for some students who had commenced their study, and then they were told to leave Australia, and then they are stuck. So they're still paying for international student tuition fee. However, they are not getting the environment and what they should have. But again, this is debatable because having these people coming back, will that attract a lot of issue for public health as well? So that's another thing. I think it's a very hard decision to make. The university remain net loser in this budget, although there are a lot of universities saying they're fine. But in fact, what we have seen is a lot of the marketing in the international education sector has been stopped, paused, or even the human resources has been cut down and fired. So that shows the issue there. The government intend to keep 2021-22 migration ceiling to be 160,000, including 79,600 skilled. Now, bear in mind, the skill is not just for general skill migration. It also include a double size of business skill investors that pushes and also plus the GTI double size of GTI, and that also pushes the general skill migrants number to be further down. So again, that's why people are suffering. But at the moment, because they are all accepting onshore applicants, I'm not too sure how many onshore applicants still out there, but let's see what happened. And 77,300 family stream places. So everyone knows about the border is gonna be reopened in mid 2022. Now, that's what they plan, because last year they planned to be open this year, and anyhow it changes, and we really need to track on time and see what happens in the future. So whether vaccination will actually help people, there's some stats showing it helps, there's some stats showing it doesn't. It's just a chaotic situation at the moment. If international students are not allowed in, I will either have to lose Australian education experience or drop the semester and wait for border to open. That's some of the student. But however, I still strongly recommend don't drop it. You still do it because studying is something that you're supposed to be going through, unless it's just unlikely to achieve what the discipline that you're trying to do. For example, if you're in trades, cookery, chef, carpentry, of course you can't conduct that online, but all the other higher education, you should continue to study. I think that's better for your future career rather than being angry about border not open. Either way, I lose time and much sort experience in international education. So according to a joint media by Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews and Immigration Minister Alex Hawke, the government intends to maintain the ceiling, so the same. So that's what we just repeated. Let's read on. However, this announcement didn't go down well with student migration agents and experts. So anyway, they didn't like it because the offshore the policy is not really open up yet. In the wake of pandemic, it does seem to be a fair budget from migration point of view. However, laying emphasis on onshore applicant does not ensure that Australia is recruiting the best talent. That's pretty obvious because March last year, obviously everybody know, Prime Minister of Australia told all the migrants to, leave and go back to your country. Now obviously all the talent's gone. So whether or not they can choose the right talent for people left onshore, that's questionable. I agree to that. Education sector seem to be hemorrhaging into a coma. I totally agree with that. And extra emphasis could have been given to bring students into Australia at the earliest, as many are finding an alternative education destination. Now that's very interesting. There are people preferring possibly changing to Canada or UK or perhaps United States. Again, that's the public opinion, but in fact, I see the ratio is not there. People would rather stay rather than go for other destination. Obviously, you see what's happening in North America. Although vaccination rate there is much higher, things are getting better, but it's still not as safe as I should say as it should be. Okay. Anyway, Monash, business school associate professor Vinod Mishra, said university are net loser in the budget, and university are already struggling because of the drop in international student. That's pretty decent comment there because obviously in the city CBD of Melbourne, it's full of international students. Whether you have been there, you know what I'm saying. And now it's all gone. For example, if fewer students start university degree this year, there will be a fewer student next year. Now, that's totally correct. Once established international student market are gone, that's a very deep statement there. It would take time for university to regain them even after the borders open. That's very, very correct because you don't get student coming in and get study. You take 3 or 4 years for people to complete. So it's a cycle. When that turbine stops, a huge turbine stops, and you wanted to reactivate it, you need to use a lot of power. If you understand mechanically what I'm trying to explain here. So that's what's happening out there. Obviously, there's a disappointment. But again, there's nothing that can be done out there. So that's the news there. Now, the next one I would like to take you guys is to the, this is ABC, I believe. Can you see that? Okay, I'm going to move it a little bit. Okay, when will skilled migrants return to Australia? Question mark. Not another year, government says. So, again, this came from yesterday. The Australian won't see significant return of migrants. Again, this is all repeating. The thing I wanted to show is that new migrant granted permanent residency after January 1st, 2022 will also be forced to wait 4 years for the social security payment. Now, that does not cover everything. That's only for the salary thing, but I doubt that's going to be an issue for new migrants, because if you newly migrated under whatever the skill visa, you should be able to have your job anyway. That's for people who cannot find job. Now that cost-cutting measure is set to a net of 671.1 million saving. That's pretty good for the government, but the lose is for the international education sector. I think that's over I think it was 40 billion from my previous article that I've gone through. No, not 40 billion. That's 10. Much more. No, 100 times almost. Anyway. The migration program will be kept the same year. Again, that's all the same thing that we're repeating. The government will also spend 464.7 million over 2 years on onshore immigration detention. Now, don't know, did they spend the money right just to remove unlawful non-citizens, or should they put those money for international education sectors? We have seen previous article seeing the University of Australia struggling. A gradual return of migrant mid-2022. Now, that's again, the rate of international arrival will continue to constrained by the state territory quarantine caps and safety travel zone. That's it's repeating the same articles. Net overseas migrant is predicted for 97,000 by June. Large drop expected, 72,000 decline. So again, that effect will slowly come into reality, and visually you can feel that. I believe that's going to come in effect very, very soon. People didn't have any issue because last year there has been a job keeper program, job seeker program, all these funding programs, money being thrown all around. Now that's all stopped, not only a few left. So let's see for the next half of 2021 how that will actually affect the economy of Australia. The budget forecast migration will fall. That's the same thing that we just talked about. The lack of migration will impact population growth. That's again. So a lot of these articles is telling us. Let's see if there's anything more in this media article. Nah, it's all repeating the same thing. 4-year wage benefit below. Okay, now the reason I wanted to show 3 different articles here is that we can see that the community is panicking after the budget has been announced. If there is no panic, there's no problem in this industry or sector or the economy of Australia, there won't be so many media and article coming out talking about this. So you can actually see they all pinpoint out issue that's all connected to the economy, jobs, works, skilled. That's all related. So as I had predicted, I assume this will continue to take a more and more effect day after day. Now, the last but not the least, I would like to give everybody an update of on the same day of when they issue the budget 2021-22. South Australia has announced they put a little bit of news, although it's not really much there, but I would like to read it out to everybody. So the Skill Business Migration Team continue to process all nomination received for South Australia Skill Migration Program. Decision on state nomination application will reflect in my application section. So that's a portal that you require to actually lodge under the South Australia's migration program. Please be advised that offshore applicant with an existing EOI in Skill Select. Offshore, you're reading it right. Maybe, it doesn't say will be. It says may be invited directly apply state nomination in current program year. Interesting. We haven't seen the federal government telling us about offshore applications, but South Australia does give an indication that the offshore application is starting to open it up. These applicants have already been identified and with a defined range of critical sectors. So at the moment, they're only looking for critical sectors. But that also reflects to my previous video where I talk about travel exemptions. Remember, at the travel exemptions, there is a option ticked where whether or not you're in the critical sector, and that reflects directly to what we have seen right now. The South Australia require these critical sector skill occupation, invite them so they can come back, because they know in these sectors, people can get travel exemptions. But anyway, how many will actually be invited, we don't know. Now, further information regarding offshore program, including occupation available, provided in conjunction with our 2021-22 program opening in July 2022. In July. So let's see what will come up in the upcoming July. Should have more news there. So make sure you subscribe to my channel, so once we have all these updated news, we'll be the first one updating you. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.